Elon Musk and the Brain Probe.
Hello and welcome to the Mark and Pete Show. Elon Musk has unveiled a pig called Gertrude with a coin-sized computer chip in her brain, and this was to demonstrate his ambitious plans to create a working brain-to-machine interface. Now, Neuralink has been developing a tiny probe containing more than 3,000 electrodes attached to flexible threads thinner than the human hair. Now, many people find this rather controversial, but in an interview, Elon Musk said, once they have the recordings, Neuralink will need to decode them and will someday hit the barrier that is our lack of basic understanding of how the brain works, no matter how many neurons they can record from. He went on to say decoding goals and movement plans is hard when you don't understand the neural code in which those things are communicated. Well, controversial. Many people just simply look at the world and say, code breakers. We are all just a bit of code, where DNA sets our mode, how our hair simply flowed, backs bent or even bowed. Simple science even showed our body programs overload, and when we eventually slowed, we then corrupt and just erode. Yes, that's the story of Clergyman Pete. Clergyman Pete, I ask you, do you believe that Elon Musk is playing God?
Well, businessman Mark, I think that this sort of accusation is bandied around far too much. When you do some sort of research that people don't understand, then often there's this sort of knee-jerk reaction, which you're playing God, you're trying to manipulate the human brain or the pig brain, and therefore you're really acting as God, not thinking it through. I think this is my thoughts. My thoughts is this: the brain is part of the body in the same way that other parts of the body are. In fact, consciousness is not located within the brain. It's not the brain itself. It's something that uses the brain, but it isn't the brain. It's bigger than that. For example, our appreciation of music, it isn't a part of the brain. It's all of a whole brain activity. It's super brain. It's spiritual, if you like. And so when we're talking about spiritual, overriding, transcendent aspects of the mind and human spirit, then he's not having anything to do with that at all. He's not affecting that, and certainly can't be playing God. What he's doing is, doing some legitimate research into how we can have a better interface and be able maybe to be more productive and to help people who are having difficulties in that area in terms of mental programming. So I don't think it's the wrong thing to do. I think that it does have its dangers, but it looks to me that what he's doing is being very careful and methodical. Certainly using a pig is a better way to start than simply shoving a computer into your brain, Mark.
Well, I'm afraid that's been done by many business leaders.
Although that might do better.
But not for the same reason. Yes. Well, look, I mean, there's a bit of controversy here. So let's take a bit of a step back. So Neuralink, which was founded by Mr. Musk himself back in 2017, was primarily where he recruited many, many scientists to work on these type of projects. Now, many people will also say there's a couple of controversial things around this, which is, on the one hand, many animal rights activists would say, actually, this is wrong because dear old Gertrude, the pig, is just an experiment. And how does that really technically translate to a human being? Because a pig is a pig and a human being is a human being. Many scientists would say, on the complete counter-argument, that a pig, in terms of its certainly its physical makeup, in terms of its brain structure, is not that far off from a human being, hence the reason why a pig is being used. But there is some real serious side behind this, in the sense that one of the reasons why that Mr. Musk and his team are doing this is because they believe that the scientific experiments are there to also help with things such as Parkinson's disease. So in the way that if they can understand the brain better, it potentially would open up opportunities to at least alleviate the problem, not completely eliminate it, but to see how you can certainly minimize the damage. So I'm going to sort of stop at this point, Cledger and Pippi, and ask you about those who are animal rights activists in the sense of experiments on animals. Dear Gertrude, who unfortunately can't join us on the program today,
Really?
but sadly that's for another occasion. But I would like to ask you, what's your view on the use of animals in scientific experiments?
Well, I think that we need to have very strict regulations on the use of animals, because I think that we have to treat them well. The Bible is clear on its condemnation of those who misuse animals. In fact, being in charge of animals is one of the main illustrations that's used to show God, what God is like as the shepherd looking after his sheep. It's very, very important that we take it seriously. However, humans take precedent over animals, and when it comes to research that's going to help the human race and help our development, I think experimenting on animals is certainly allowed, but we need to do it in a careful manner. We need to make sure that animals don't unnecessarily suffer, for example.
Yeah.
But I certainly wouldn't say you shouldn't experiment on them. I think, however, it is a good thing that we have people who care enough about animals to be activists in that area. This is exactly the way that a free society works better than a tyrant, for example. It works better because you have people who are pressuring, giving advice, or giving advice is what I meant to say. Giving advice, but also keeping an eye on what you're doing. So therefore, you can't get away with things. So I think it's good to have government regulation. It's also great that we have these activists keeping an eye on what's going on. But I certainly wouldn't want a blanket ban. And it does seem to me that as far as I can tell, what Elon Musk is doing, although I can see. It's not something I'm happy with, that a pig's brain's being messed around with, but I can see that it's an important bit of research, so I wouldn't say he shouldn't do it.
No, indeed. Well, some people would say that essentially the pig isn't actually suffering. Certainly, the scientists are saying, because essentially, in a practical sense, if we get down to the nitty gritty, what is actually happening is that this probe is like a neural probe, is going up the pig's snout and trying to determine, things such as what type of senses that the pig would have, whether what she ate and what it sniffed and so on. And it's offensively monitoring behavior and obviously tracking brain patterns. But here we come back to a slightly broader subject. This is from a business perspective, and there's a sense of irony in all of this. As we all know, that Elon Musk is an entrepreneur, and he has really built his business on technology. And one of the things that Mr. Musk has openly talked about, and as he has seen technology adding value, he also has a concern about the way that artificial intelligence could potentially be a danger to mankind. And one of the reasons that he's claiming on this particular score is that he's saying that there is a long-term ambition to usher in an age of what he calls superhuman cognition, essentially in a part combat of artificial intelligence, because he believes that artificial intelligence will actually become more powerful and destroy the human race. Now, we can all sit here and say, well, I think that's a little bit of a doomsayer prediction, and that will never, ever happen. But actually, when we start to sort of think about how sophisticated technology is becoming, we're becoming much more reliant on automated technology that determines how some of our power stations work, technology how our computers work, and it's tracking behavior. And it's becoming, should we say, less reliant on human beings, because human beings are coding things to effectively run aspects of our lives where things used to be much more manual. His prediction in years to come, decades to come, will be that actually we will reach a point where we almost lose the control, where artificial intelligence will start to develop artificial intelligence, and then suddenly
Sure.
it takes over. Now,
Yes.
I think we should say that from an entrepreneurial perspective, there's lots of scope. And certainly, without any doubt, it can certainly speed up processes, businesses can be much more efficient, and people could potentially make a lot more money. Now, from a skills perspective, that's great for coders, those where, in actual fact, I can tell you that there are just not enough people in technology to be able to code. There is the counter to this, which sadly, the world that we live in, Clergyman Pete, is that there are far too many people who exploit the cyber world, and we have cyber criminals who just seem to spend more time trying to either put in ransomware on computers, taking companies down just for political gain, or even targeting individuals. So we've got an unusual world going on here. Mr. Musk has certainly enjoyed the profits of technology, but he's also talking about the fear of it. What's your view on the way that technology might take over our lives?
Well, this plays into a well-known prophecy in the Bible. I'm just going to read this Bible verse, a couple of verses from Revelation, and talk very briefly about how it does or doesn't apply to what you just said. Just to give a spoiler, I think it does apply somewhat. It has something to say, but not necessarily as directly as some people claim. Here is the verse. It's a prophecy from Revelation 13, beginning to read at verse 16, talking about the beast. A beast being someone, a leader who's going to come. And it says this: it also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Now, this idea has long been thought to refer to having a microchip, maybe embedded in your arm or in your head, and
Yes.
that you would need this in order to take part in trade, in order to take part in the economy at all. So it was a way of controlling you, and this was seen as a bad thing prophesied in Revelation and part of bad things to come. Now, just briefly, I'll say what I think this passage meant to the people who read it at the time. It was to do with the Emperor Nero and his controlling people, and there was a trend, to have people either marked in some way, with a tattoo, or the opposite would be, if you were a loyal follower of God, you would, during your prayers, have the prayers in a little box on your head and on your arm, which Jews still do today. So what we see here is something speaking to the situation at the time. However, it does apply, doesn't it? Because just think, if we have people insisting that we need this chip in our brain, otherwise we're not allowed to trade, if it's used to control us, it's a bad thing. So I see the difficulties, I see the problems. I think, however, once technology is out there, it's a mistake to say, well, let's try and get rid of it, let's hide it. No, what you need to do is to keep it out there and regulate it and make sure that we have a free society where these things are used correctly. So let's not try and shovel it away and pretend that the technology isn't there. Let's not stop this research, but rather let's make sure we're all fully informed as possible, and let's try and have a say in how it is used, bearing in mind this warning from the Bible that you don't want to have people controlling your freedom, by putting a mark on you, which could be something like this brain interface. It could be, there's no reason why that couldn't be the same sort of thing as was being looked at in Revelation, but of course updated by a few thousand years. So let's just be careful. I know that's not much of a great advice, but that's really what I'm saying. I'm saying you can't stop it, so work with it, but make sure that people are using this technology, in a way that's helpful and not harmful. As to whether it's going to develop into some sort of super hybrid human and android. Well, I don't know that. I don't know that that would be a bad or a good thing, but it would make a brilliant movie.
Well, now I'm actually going to sort of give you a little bit of insight, and I've actually sort of dealt with the individual I'm going to mention myself for business reasons, but I won't sort of go too deep in it. But we talk about technology in the sense of in chips and implants in a way that it seems like it's actually just fantasy as science fiction. There is a
Yeah,
person who
great
you can actually
movies.
look up on a TED talk called Neil Harbison, and he describes himself as like the world's first cyber person in the sense, or cyborg, in the sense
Like
that he
Cyborg
has.
in the DC universe,
Yes, he has
superhero.
a probe embedded in the back of his head, which just looks like a large antenna. And the reason is that Neil, unfortunately, when he was born, is colorblind, but he can actually basically sense color in the sense of that the sensor sends out a signal to a given object and can determine its shade, telling him essentially whether something is of a particular shade of color. Now, this is all great and it's good because technology is certainly helping. I must admit that the visual image of an antenna coming out of somebody's head is rather amusing. And if you do actually listen to him on a TED talk, it's very entertaining. The sad part is it comes back to some of the things that I've alluded to is he did admit recently that he was hacked. And that meaning that, unfortunately, he did actually reveal that a hacker hacked into his probe and basically scuppered the functionality of his antenna.
Yeah, I
So
mean
on the
yes,
one,
that's a problem.
you
That's
can
an issue.
see how
Yeah,
that
yeah,
could cause
yeah,
some
yeah.
problems. So this is where I think you can argue that technology is really good, but also it does play to Mr. Musk's
Yeah, but let
fear.
me but let me just talk. I think people will be able to see when I describe the way that people behave. Things are never quite as bad as they seem. I mean, let's just say with the development of technology, we thought, oh no, this is terrible. We are going to just, be taken over by machines. There's the paperless office. Won't be using paper again with the reams of paper that you have to buy to run an office these days. That's a little bit of a hollow laugh there. But let's just look at things developed with technology. Take the arms race, for example. You say, oh, this is terrible. Someone's developed this terrific new weapon. Oh, someone's developed this terrific defense against it. Oh, and it sort of develops like that. Now, in the same way, where if someone develops this technology that can interface with you, it knows what you're thinking. Maybe it can take over. People can hack in and know what you're thinking. Maybe do you harm. But then people on the other side will say, we can do a bit like the development of virus and then antivirus software. But then we can fool you into thinking something that we want you to think, and we're going to make money out of you. This is where the free market works. Mark, you as a businessman must be able to see that this is a great opportunity.
Oh, I
Probe
do.
versus brain technology.
I
They'll
think it's
be
wonderful.
fighting against each other. Great
Yes,
whole series of entrepreneurs
an
and
entrepreneur's paradise. It can actually
yes,
get inside your head.
yes, the Mark and Pete probe will be coming to a store near you very, very soon.
Yes, indeed. Well, it is worrying, and sort of in summary, then. So, listeners, what do you think? I mean, Mr. Musk has been known for his public imagination and his bold predictions, and many people feel that on the one hand he is doing good with Neuralink and many of his other ventures we know about, but. Do you also, to the counter, feel that actually maybe it's just going that little bit too far? Why not log on to markandpete.com and let us know your thoughts? Well, Mr. Musk is going to continue. As for Gertrude, well, we'll have to investigate on her progress. Yes, why not join us again next time for more topical topics with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark?